This is Abe Pretenzer from cinemadailyus.com, and I'm thrilled to be speaking with Ellen Rapoport, the creator, showrunner, and executive producer of Minx. How are you doing today, Ellen?
Good. Nice to meet you.
You too. I really like this show, and I'm curious, how did it come into being? Where did it start?
It started when I read several magazine. Oh, sorry. It started when I read several articles about these types of magazines in the 70s. There were a few, and a few things struck me. One, I had never realized that, for example, Playboy was intended, Playgirl was intended to be a feminist magazine. And that these workplaces were populated largely by feminists and pornographers working together. So obviously, if you're a TV writer, you read that and you think that's an incredible idea for a workplace show. And so I started doing a lot of research. I bought out eBay's treasure trove of 70s porn, for better or for worse. And once I started reading the magazines, what really struck me is that so many of the articles dealt with the issues that women are still talking about today: abortion, rape, sexual harassment, whether or not to have kids. And it felt like there was a way to kind of do a modern show, a modern feeling show that wasn't a cultural relic, and talk about things that were happening today, but set it in this really interesting period, this dynamic period of cultural change.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are not real characters. Minx was not a real magazine, but it's based on a few different ones, right?
It's a kind of a mush, an amalgamation, I guess, of all of them. They all had different things that they did.
Are there any specific people or specific publications that really caught your eye that you wanted to make sure to preserve something of what they were doing in this show?
I think that they all were pretty interesting. I mean, Viva to me was an interesting publication because it was run by Bob Guccione, who was obviously the publisher of Penthouse. And he put his girlfriend, Kathy Keaton, in charge, and they were trying to do kind of something artistic and a little bit highbrow. And Playgirl also had an interesting origin story. It was started by a nightclub promoter who just wanted to make money, as far as I could tell, off the women's movement and sexual liberation. And it was his wife who came up with the idea of having nude men in the magazine. And just kind of started from nothing and raised money. And they were more of a populist, mass market, commercial magazine. And those two I thought were just really interesting. Neither one of those magazines in and of itself, I thought was right in terms of how I wanted to do the show, but they both are really interesting historical artifacts, I think.
Yeah, and I think the show is really very sex positive and open-minded, sort of the polar opposite of what this world that they're living in is meant to be. Was the process of getting this show made like that, or were there still people who felt like the world isn't ready for this kind of thing yet?
The process of getting the show sold was very difficult. I mean, I thought it was a great idea, and I couldn't believe it when everyone said no. And we just got really, really nice passes. And they would say, "We love it. It's so much fun. We can't put penises on our service." Fair enough. And once we were in the HBO Max family, it felt really seamless and easy because everyone was on the same page as us and had the same vision as us. And so it was really hard and then really, really not.
That's good, yeah. And I feel like there are a lot of penises on TV now. I've read a lot about this, with Euphoria and Pam and Tommy and all these other shows. But I feel like the way that they are on this show is sort of just they're background characters. They're not meant to be scandalous. And I think I really like the character of Joyce because she's the one who, watching all this, I think represents those who might be startled and scandalized by it. But that's not the overwhelming mentality of the people on the show.
No, I think that our penises are baked into our premise. And so I really tried to make a point of not using them gratuitously. I thought that would annoy me if I were an audience member, although it seems like people just like them anywhere. So maybe I was wrong. But for me, it was important not to use them gratuitously. And just obviously they work in a porn magazine. There's going to be nudity inherent in the workplace.
You got to work with Paul Feig on this show. What was it like collaborating with him?
He's great. He's such a champion of women, and he actually remembered when Playgirl came to his town and what a big deal it was. And so that was obviously helpful. I think he's just wonderful. He gives very precise, targeted notes that make everything better, which is really all you can ask for.
Yeah. And what was the process like of building your cast?
It was challenging. Finding Joyce was both hard and easy in that Ophelia came in very early before the pandemic shut us down. And I was able to sit in a room with her and work with her. And I just saw right away, she got the character. She was so, you could just give her like this tiny little piece of direction and she would take it and revise the performance and it would just make such a difference. She's just so talented. And then, because of that role, the network did want us to test 2 actresses. So then I spent the next 8 months looking for someone to test her against. And I failed. There was just no one else. And finally, we said, this is it. We don't know how to make the show if it's not her. So that was hard and easy. Jake, we found out that Stumptown was canceled and we immediately made him an offer. We all knew that he was perfect for the part. And he read it and he really responded to it. And we had a creative conversation. And I remember we talked about a few things about the character. And, one thing I remember is he said, I don't think Doug and Joyce should have sexual tension. And I was so excited because I also didn't want to do one of those shows, which is the will they or won't they. I mean, I like those shows too, but it just felt like there was a more interesting relationship to explore in terms of a business partnership and a mentorship and a friendship. So, and then everyone else, actually almost everyone came in for us before the pandemic. And I think that says something because they have the benefit of working with the casting associates who are in the room and can direct the performance and get it right. I think it's really hard now with everyone on taping themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure. And obviously the show hasn't premiered yet, so we don't know what the future is, but I hope it'll be very long. Do you have multiple seasons ready to go?
I mean, I think there are multiple seasons in this. I'd like to take it all the way to the 80s because I think that there's so many cultural shifts that happened between 1972 and say 1984. And I think the country took a really interesting turn in the 80s with the election of Reagan and really just a much more conservative mindset. And it was kind of, that's, I believe, like right around the time where the feminist movement really splintered over the cause of pornography with, the pro-pornography third wave feminists and then the anti-porn feminists. And I don't know, I'd like to see them go corporate, sell themselves out to a big publisher in New York.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Well, I appreciate you speaking with me today. And I hope everyone enjoys watching Minx when it premieres on March 17th on HBO Max. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.